Hi, Maoz. How are you? Welcome to the Global Conversation.
Hi, Taufik. It's a pleasure and honor. I started this journey and I was falling into the abyss on October
Hmm.
7th. My parents were among the first victims of the Hamas attack. Neighbors of my parents told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes and there are two bodies inside. If we choose revenge, we'll only escalate the cycle of war, of bloodshed, hate, and fear that we've been trapped within not since October 7th for a century. Every morning, I'm getting a message from friends in Gaza, and there's family members who died, were killed. I'm crying with them like so many cried with me on October 7th. Israeli Palestinian conflict will end one day. There are 7 million Palestinians, 7 million Israelis. No one is going to go anywhere.
Where do you see things in the year 2040? Where are we in the Holy Land 15 years from now? Hi, Maoz. How are you? Welcome to the Global Conversation.
Hi, Taufik. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you.
Well, I'm glad we're seeing each other virtually. I wish it was in person, but I'm sure that will happen soon. Where are you today? Where are we taping from?
I'm speaking from my home. It's a small town in Israel named Binyamina,
Okay.
halfway between Tel Aviv and Haifa, about 10,000 people resident, small and quiet, nice town.
Well, I'm in New York City, also a small and quiet, nice
Quiet
town.
and
uh,
nice.
well, hopefully, we'll see you here soon, and we'll be able to do this in person. But I'm glad we're able to have this conversation because Mao's not just today, and in this current time. I just feel like this type of conversation is important because we're not having these kind of introspective looks at what is possible, both in the Middle East, but even generally in the world as it is now. How would you characterize, just to kind of set the scene, uh, the spiritual moment we're in the world? I mean, if you just step back before we start getting into the issues, how does it feel to you, kind of overall, just where we are?
Okay. Hey, wow. We are starting. We are falling into an abyss. We are free falling into an abyss. It seems like there is no button. It seems like the level of uncertainty is rising, the level of insecurity, of division, of polarization. And definitely speaking from Israel, I was born and raised in Israel. I'm based here. This is when I'm opening also public speaking with Israelis. I keep telling them, yes, we are falling into the abyss, and we will overcome. We'll overcome because that's what humanity proved so many times in the past. So even in the darkest time, we know that the light will shine again.
It's an interesting thought. I'm reading some essays by Aldous Huxley, and are you familiar with Aldous Huxley, Brave New
No.
World? And
Okay.
he talks about this, the pairing of darkness and light, of creation, destruction, and it's a concept that is in actually a lot of the religions, faiths, where these are paired together, and often makes me think, we're in a moment where we're seeing all, like you said, this abyss and etc. But then I sometimes wonder, I'm like, is this unique, or is this kind of how it's just always been?
So I think it's exactly like it's always been. And then I'm usually saying that it's time for prophecy. If you want the spiritual moment of nowadays, is it's time from prophecy because, and this is part of the spiritual journey I'm going through. And I wasn't speaking like this before October 7th, but prophets has have two roles. Their number one role is they are basically political. They are doing political analysis for this, for the reality, for what they see, and they are telling the leaders, the politician, and the common people that we are trying to hold a status quo that is already broken. What we are trying to hold is broken, and if we continue to focus our energy in holding what is broken, it's going to crash upon us all and will bring great destruction. And the second role of the prophets is to show us the new path, which action we should take now that we didn't took before. So they are showing us the way we should start following from now on. And all prophets in three monotheism religion, Jewish, Christianity, and Islam, they have the same prophecy. The prophecy is always the same: peace, justice, and equality. Choosing humanity, not choosing land; choosing reconciliation, not choosing revenge; choosing negotiation and dialogue, and reject war and destruction. All prophets and all prophecies are the same, and
Mm.
now it's the time
It's
to go back.
interesting, because there's the spiritual lens, right? And then there is the religious lens, and I think we know that they both overlap and diverge, right? So the leadership and organization of a religion can take on that mantle of spirituality, or actually sometimes take on like that essence and almost ignore the underlying kind of spirituality. But one of the things that's very interesting about the age we're in is that we shifted into a religion of the state and nationalism. And obviously, the situation in the Middle East is interesting because sometimes we have religious nationalism, but there is, I think some people say, a worship of secular concepts today of power, the state, and nationalism over some of what you described, in terms of spirituality. So I wonder, is prophecy possible, when, in this moment, or is it something that maybe is not?
So prophecy is not possible. It's necessary.
Hmm.
It's necessary because both religion, in some aspects, definitely here in the Middle East, religion and nationalism were hijacked. They were hijacked by false prophets or by people that thrive over polarization, division, bloodshed, and revenge. So we need to go back to the core. And the core is the prophecy. And the core is within each one of us. And what I'm saying now is that each one of us should need to be a prophet. We cannot wait for others. We need to take the action. We need to look in the reality, but through ethical and spiritual values, not values of money or power or land. We need to acknowledge that all creatures are here for a reason, and we are all equal, not just in between each other, but also by the eyes of God. And we need to act with love, with compassion, with empathy. And again, this is part of. I started this journey, and I was falling into the abyss on October
Hmm.
7th.
Hmm.
I start falling on
Tell
October.
us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that period and why it felt like an abyss and what happened.
So my parents were among the first victims of the Hamas attack.
Hmm.
Uh, I was speaking to my father from this room in Binyamina, 7:30 Saturday morning. My parents were living in Netiva Asara. It is the closest Israeli community to the Gaza border on the north side. And my father said they are shooting and bombs, and there is a war around us. So we lock the house and we are in the safe room. And 15 minutes after, quarter to 8, I called him again, and this time there was no answer. So I called my sisters. I have three sisters. I called my young brother. We tried to reach my father, my mother, their neighbors, friends from the community. No one answered us. So we gathered together at my sister's house, expecting for the worst news to come. And unfortunately, they came. They came around 4 in the afternoon, where one of the neighbors picked up the phone, neighbors of my parents, and told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes and there are two bodies inside. So this is the abyss where everyone is afraid of. Definitely, someone who lives in Israel, so close to Gaza. This is the worst nightmare, and the nightmare happened. Um, so this is for me when I'm speaking about falling. This is I'm speaking not literally, physically. I was falling, and so in the Jewish tradition and culture, we have the Shiva, the 7 day of mourning, and my family decided to start this those days on Sunday. Just few hours after we received the horrible news, we didn't wait for any official announcement from the government, from the IDF, from any kind of authorities. We just started it, or a rabbi. That's what many people are doing. So we started the Shiva, the Jewish way of mourning. And then on the second day, my young brother, Magen, he asked the siblings of my parents, of Bila and Yaakov Inon, he asked us to agree on a universal message we're going to send from our own personal tragedy and loss. And he wanted this message to be that we are seeking no revenge, that we reject revenge. We don't want to revenge the deaths of our parents, because by revenging, first, we're not going to bring them back. They're dead. We lost them. And if we choose revenge, we'll only escalate the cycle of war, of bloodshed, hate, and fear that we've been trapped within, not since October 7th, for a century. The Israeli Palestinian conflict has been going on for a century, and he asked the family to break this cycle. He told us we can break the cycle. And so this is the journey. As a family, we took on ourselves.
How tell us a little bit about us, meaning the audience, obviously myself here, but others are going to view in. Tell us a little bit about your parents. What were they like, and how what was their disposition? Obviously, they saw so much in terms of vicissitudes of the conflict and the cycle of revenge. What was their outlook, and what did they pass on to you, and did that shape kind of how you emerged from the abyss you described?
So they were loving and supporting parents. That's, everything we have done. Even sometimes they told us, we think it's a mistake, but if you choose to do it, we'll support you and we'll back you. As long as this, you are doing what your heart is telling you to do. And they were doing, they had 11 grandchildren. So they were
Yeah.
also very involved and caring and within the life of all their grandchildren. My father was 78, my mom 76, and for some it might sound old, but they were in the prime of their life. My father was working full time as a agronomist, advisor, agriculture advisor. My mom was a mandala artist. She was painting mandalas, and she had a studio when children, youth, adults, elderly people would come for her painting groups. Also, the pillars of their own community. My father was the chairman of the community for 2 terms. My mother was really involved with the life and the cultural life of the community. And they educated us from young age that everyone are equal. We shouldn't treat anyone by his color, by his ethnical background, rich or poor, religion. We should acknowledge that everyone are equal and to judge others only by their action, only by their action. And my father was also he was not just a agriculture advisor, he was the best, really the best farmer in Israel. And in the interviews and talks I made just after October 7th, I used to start by saying that nothing can prepare you, Taufik, or me, or anyone else for losing both his parents and so many of his childhood friends and their parents and their children that will be killed or kidnapped to Gaza. And then, as the weeks passed from October 7th, I suddenly realized that I was prepared. Not just me, my family, we were prepared for October 7th, and we were prepared by our parents, of course, because my father was sowing wheat in the fields for 60 years, like farmers are doing between the river to the sea for thousands of years. My father was doing it only in the last 60 years. And each season, he will share how difficult and how much, how catastrophic the situation in the field is. There are droughts and floods and insects and wildfires. Every time there is a crisis, and then while he shared with us the difficulties of being a farmer, he would always say that next year he gonna sow wheat again because next year will be better. It doesn't matter how catastrophic this year is, next year will be better. He can change the future, even not not even maybe not to predict the future, but he can change it if we will learn from his mistakes. He will consult with others. He will get the best seeds. He will fertile the land. He will open the land for the rainwater to come, and he will sow not with faith. He will sow knowing that next year will be better. And then we realized now it's our turn. Now it's our turn to change the future. We cannot wait for no one else, like my father never waited for someone else. So this is exactly what we are doing.
So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's, generations and our seasons, and now it's your season, and you're taking on that mantle. So interesting, metaphor. Um, and as you grew up, did you grow up there where your parents were living?
A nearby kibbutz,
Yeah.
which was a mile away from the border of Gaza. We could,
So
yeah.
you could see it. So as you grow up, and then as you would go back, what was your interaction with Gaza? Your parents, yourself, the people, the land? Was it distant? Did you actually go there ever? Did you meet people from there? Were the workers coming? What were the personal and other interactions you or your parents or family have had over the years?
That again, that's a very good question, and there is not an easy answer. And for
Mm,
each Israeli you will ask, you will get a different answer.
right.
But I will say that the general atmosphere was of ignorance. We didn't know why. I didn't know why they are there. Okay, how come Gaza is so big and with so small in land, but so big with residency and people. So when I was born in 1975, and growing up as a child, it was a fence on the line of the border. It's the border of from 48. There was a fence, and slowly, it's become a huge wall. And as a child, we would use to go to the garage, to the beach, to restaurants, and many day workers would come from Gaza to work in the kibbutz orchard or factory or the fields. So there was interaction. Yes, as a child, there was definitely an interaction. And with the first intifada, it's when the wall starts building itself. Okay, it started getting higher and higher. First intifada was 87. So from there, we would stop, go to the garage or to restaurants. Definitely with the second intifada in 2000, and then the disembarkment from Gaza in 2005, and then Hamas getting in power 2007, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
From that moment on, there was a total wall between Gaza and what we now it's called in the envelope of Gaza from the Israeli side, and what the discourse or what's dominated the Israeli perspective is that wall can bring defense, that bombs can bring quiet, and war will bring security, because those are the cycles that has been going on: 2006, 2008, 2010, 2014, 2017, 2019, 2021. After each cycle, the government or the IDF announcing, people can go and do track records on Wikipedia or any newspaper, reliable newspaper that they read, that even in May 21, the government of Israel announced that Israel erased Hamas military power and demolished all Hamas tunnels. And that they promise that the communities around the Gaza are secure and safe. And the wall that was basically shadowing my parents' house, only 200 meters. It's like, it's so close, like looking to you in the screen, 200 meters, the most invested wall humanity ever built. The deepest, with digital an electronic machine, like whatever, down to the earth, and hundreds of meters up, with balloons, with drones, and with concrete wall, maybe 12 or 20 meters high.
Mm.
And my parents and me, myself, were living within a lie that this wall will defend us. But the writing was on the wall. It was a lie, but it was easy to live by this lie. And my parents, they were people of peace. Okay, they were people of peace. They didn't try to hurt anyone or to bring anyone to create a violence or act anyone in a violent manner, but they weren't actively trying to take the wall down. Okay, and we were the entire society, the Israeli society, was under this false convention and assumption that there is no partner. This is basically what Ehud Barak, who was the prime minister in 2021, said after one of the peace negotiation with Yasser Arafat failed.
2001.
Yeah,
One.
2001. He said there is no partner.
Right.
And basically, since then, and definitely that's what the Netanyahu's ongoing government were ensuring there will be no partner. And how they were doing it: by weakening the Palestinian Authority and
Mm.
strengthening Hamas. And what I'm saying now, it's not from my imagination, okay? It's Smotrich, now
Mm.
the Minister of Finance said publicly
Yeah.
that Hamas is an asset.
Right.
Hamas is an asset for the state of Israel,
Mm.
because Hamas is ensuring there will be no negotiation and there will be no Palestinian states.
So if you take, yourself, I mean, and it's an interesting, I think we'll go a little bit deeper into that. And I think anybody who's gone a little bit into the history now, like you said, it's not something hidden. It's quite an obvious strategy over many years, and explicitly stated now by a lot of the officials in the government today and their allies. But if you look at yourself on October 6th and then October 8th, did you have any relationships with anybody from Gaza? And on October 6th and then, October 8th or thereafter, did you have a relationship with them, or what was the conversation?
So October 6th, I had a lot of relationship, first with Palestinian citizens of Israel.
Hmm.
which are 20% of the citizens of Israel,
Yes.
around 2 million. That's a big minority.
Big.
So for the last 20 years, now it's 20, yeah, 20 years
Yeah,
I've
we're
been
getting
working.
older.
Yeah, well, definitely getting older. For the last 20 years, I was investing and
Right.
building bridges between Jews and Arabs,
Mm.
mostly within the state of Israel by
Mm.
opening a guest house in the old city of Nazareth. We can also go in deeper in that direction, which was a landmark within Israel tourism, but also in the city of Nazareth, because it was the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth. And and we were followed by more than 50 initiatives, all by local Nazarene, Palestinian Nazarene entrepreneurs that open coffee shops, galleries, boutique hotel, guest houses, family stays. So we really were able to transform the city of Nazareth through tourism and allowing Jewish Israelis to come and stay overnight in a Palestinian city, which was unthinkable, and also allowing people of Nazareth that for many, many reasons stopped coming to the old city because it's become known for drug dealers and violence and crime. Suddenly it's become the hub of the city of Nazareth, the largest Palestinian city within Israel. So we built a very powerful reputation for ourselves in Nazareth, and becoming, as a Jewish Israeli, I didn't become just one of the community members in a Palestinian city. I became one of the leaders just based on the hard work I was doing. And I was supported the entire community around me. And through another business initiatives, Abraham Hostel and Tours, uh, we had many partners in Palestine, like tourism suppliers and guides and accommodation, and in Jordan. And I also I I was on a 4 day seminar in the West Bank in summer 2022. So I learned deep for 4 days. It's definitely more than most of us or most of our listeners, your listeners. 4 days in depth within the Palestinian communities and society in West Bank, and I came out with two conclusions. Number one was that the occupation is the biggest, most invested, holistic, and successful project of the state of Israel. It's unbelievable. It's beyond imagination. The segregation, the out, that there is no freedom of movement, that there is no freedom of speech, of gathering, basically no basic human rights, and how it's being done, and still be the state of Israel is not only able to control it and manifest it, but at the same time there is a slow annexation of the land with growing and growing Jewish settlers and settlements within the West Bank. This was number one conclusion. The second was that it's not sustainable.
Mm.
It's not going to last.
Mm.
The level of oppression is so big that it's going to erupt sooner or later. So, and I also wrote about it. I wrote about it in an Israeli magazine. So, in this term, October 7th was no surprise. But I didn't thought in my worst nightmare that I will pay the price. I
Right.
thought it will happen in the West Bank.
Mm. Right. So then, and then, so in Gaza, was that just, did you have any relation there with people
No,
or
the
that?
wall, Taufik, the wall was so high.
Yeah.
Even if you wanted to look, you could not see.
Mm.
Okay, it's like behind the mountains
Mm.
or like the other side of the Atlantic.
So it's interesting because I think I've also never been to Gaza. I've been around Israel and Palestine, in so many of the cities. Some the ones that you mentioned, I have deep friendships, but I've never been to Gaza because it's always been a challenge to even get in. And I think a little bit about me. I'm pretty connected, and I just was like, this is complicated, right? And it created this wall physically, but then also almost virtually. You felt like, yes, you could come in remote, but there was almost a separation. You didn't have the same linkages, the same organizations, the interconnectivity. One of the things that I found, over the last 2 years is that there seems to be a separation between uh, the West Bank and Gaza and the people there. And even if you look at, the violence unfolding in Gaza and the situation, a lot of, I mean, I don't want to call it, you know, day to day normal, but life has gone on in the West Bank. People are doing whatever they're doing in Ramallah under occupation, all of these things. What do you make of that? I mean, do you feel that the project has been so successful that even Gaza has been divorced from the situation of other Palestinians?
Yeah. Yes, from 2007, it's very difficult for people from Gaza to interact with people in the West Bank. If
Hmm.
it's just medical treatment, universities, families, if it's families event or marriage, it's very, very difficult to do it. And now, even in the West Bank, it's very difficult from someone from Ramallah to be in a close relationship or a work relationship with someone from Bethlehem, which used to be maybe 20 minutes or I don't know, 30 minutes drive. Now, through the checkpoints, it can take half a day. So this is what when I'm talking about segregation and about walling between us. And but I'll want to go back to my own personal story for a second. So when I was 30, I was I found myself in a remote village in Ecuador, uh, backpacking with my wife. It was the second time we traveled around the world, and we stayed with this indigenous community for a week, and we learned about their festivals and way of life and culture and heritage and language. And then we say to ourselves suddenly, how come we know so much about indigenous people in South Africa, indigenous people in Australia, in Asia, in New Zealand, but we don't have even one Palestinian friend? We were at the age of 30, we didn't know the difference between Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, and Ramadan. We didn't know where Jesus was born, where he's buried, and never heard about the Annunciation. So we said we lived all our life within walls, physical and mental walls of ignorance. And what's the problem with ignorance? That this is only the first step. When there is ignorance, there is fear. And when there is fear, there is hate. And when there is hate, there is the life that we are all living now. So this what brought us at the age of 30 to break like our course of life and to open a business in the city of Nazareth, the largest again Palestinian city, and that's basically changed our whole perspective. And that's why 2 weeks after I lost my parents, we have done a wake ceremony in Nazareth.
Wow.
Hundreds of Palestinians came.
Hmm.
Hundreds of Palestinians came. They cried with us. They hugged us, and we were together.
So, yeah, go ahead, finish what
So
you're going to say.
so those walls can be broken, but in order to do it, we must work together.
So it's an interesting kind of moment. I mean, the darkness right after October 7th now, and, obviously so many things are unfolding, and we'll see, but just the totality of what happened since October 7th, even from, the hostages being there for so long, the different theaters of conflict that opened, and then the devastation in Gaza, in a very strange way, I feel the light was actually more then, even though it was such a raw period, than today, where I feel there's darkness on all sides. Is that what you feel, or do you feel that there's a more openness to kind of other pathways now?
Okay, so I will answer with two different comments. First, I had no friends in Gaza on October 7th.
Hmm.
Now I have many.
Hmm.
I'm being reached and I'm reaching out to people in Gaza, people who have family in Gaza, and they are reaching out to me.
Hmm.
So in every and unfortunately, every morning I'm getting a message from friends in Gaza, and they share family members who died, were killed by the Israeli army during the night. Every morning I wake up to those messages. It's so devastating. It's so devastating, but I'm crying with them. I'm crying with them like so many cried with me on October 7th. Sometimes there is nothing we can do but cry and act with solidarity. So that was the first part of the answer. The second is, and I didn't came I'm not a scholar. I never finished my bachelor degree. I'm not a diploma. I'm not I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman. I work on the ground, but I learned so much in the last year and nearly 2 years. And the most important thing I learned is that all conflicts end in the end. All conflicts ends in the end. Usually they are ending at the same condition that we could achieve before the last bloodshed. This is what history proves. Israeli-Palestinian conflict will end one day. It will end.
So, but if yeah, go
And
ahead.
every day that passes, we are getting
Right.
closer to peace. And our mission is
Mm.
to make peace by 2030. In 5 years from now, and I emphasize by, it can be much faster. There will be peace and reconciliation between the Israelis and Palestinians. And that was needs to be proved, and we need to just prove it again now.
So that's it's an interesting way to look at I don't disagree with you. I think and it's one of those things that all situations that you're in, they come to an end, right? Uh and history and humanity, we're in a very similar situation at all times, the same features, the same human characteristics. And that's why some of the stories in Israel, Palestine, from the land resonate, because you see the same type of concepts, emotions, feelings throughout thousands of years of history. It's the human condition. But we know from all of that also that ending can come in two ways. And I think the notion of power, there's a notion of righteousness, and people protect that. You probably work in a grassroots where you're trying to get people to protect that righteousness. You're not waiting for people in power to protect that righteousness and create kind of this, a situation of coexistence. But sometimes power wins, and when power wins in a conflict, it also ends the conflict. It just means that one side is eviscerated, and that's also how many conflicts have ended. And if you look at the Israeli side right now, where there is a lot of power, the argument of some of the ministers that you would have mentioned, I don't need to say the names, is they echo what you're saying. They're saying every time we've been in this thing, we just stop and we end up in the same place. So this time we're going to finish it once and for all. So why would it end in the way you're saying and not end in this other way?
It will end in our way only if we work together. And
Okay.
as soon I will share with you the 5 steps we need to take in order to make this dream into a reality. Power is very flexible. Sometimes it's in this side, and suddenly it goes to the it shifts to
Mm,
the other side.
mm,
Like everything we see around us that we think is concrete and like is anchored to the ground. It's many times it's a false concept, like identity. Okay, so now the Muslim identity of the New Yorker might be rising because Mahadani that will is going to be the candidate of the mayor. So, but if before that someone would ask you, would you identify yourself again? I don't know. A Muslim, someone will ask a Muslim in New York, how would you identify yourself? And he said, I don't know. He said, I live in the Bronx. I live in Manhattan. I study in NYU or in Colombia. He wouldn't identify himself as a Muslim, but maybe nowadays he will identify because he will be proud. I would be proud to be a Muslim in New York nowadays. So I would identify myself as a Muslim. Identities keep changing all the time for each one of us. Borders always go. One time they are here, the other day they are there. They're moving all the time. Also, public opinion. Always, it's public opinion is the most flexible thing in democracy, because it's what we think now gonna stuck, but it's not. I remember reading like the U.S. politics. Some analysts said after Obama first term that the Democrats now gonna be in the office for decades.
Mm.
Well, they didn't. So it's always changing. So we need to know that what we see now, it's not gonna what we're gonna see tomorrow. And also history prove that those who justified and ensured their existence just on power and military force, they fail. They fail not in terms of centuries or millenniums. They failed in a matter of dozens of years.
Mm.
No empire ever existed just based on military force.
So
Israel. And Israel won all
yeah,
the recent war. Israel won all the wars in the
yeah.
past. 48, 56, 67, 73, Lebanon, intifadas. Israel always win, and then we are preparing ourselves to the next war. And this is such a big mistake. It's this is our tragedy.
So in one sense, let's say I want to agree with you, and but the devil's advocate could say, fine, there's always wars, but if you look at the Torah, if you look at our history, war is a condition of kingdom. War is actually always there, and you're always fighting the next war, and you just have to keep fighting and keep being strong. And that's nothing wrong with that. That's You always will have enemies, and if you are, in this case, let's say I'm the Jewish people, or I feel like I represent that as a movement, we're going to have enemies. So we will always fight. That's one philosophy. And then if you look at cases like China, they subsumed Tibet, and they, whatever we can say, maybe they did it in a way that people say it. You can make an argument about Tibet. I don't want to get into Chinese politics, but Tibet today is not free, is not independent, and is part of China, and is dominated and controlled. So the question is, why can that not be for Israel? And so, me and you might share a sentimentality that war should end, and that there is balance between peoples, but sometimes wars and the warlike condition doesn't end, and you can dominate other people.
I'm trying to think where to start. And you said so many wise and important things. I'm trying to think. So you know what saved Judaism?
Tell me.
The destruction of the second temple. That's what saved Judaism. Otherwise, evolvement and rise of Judaism from being in a one place, okay,
Yeah.
the temple,
Yeah.
be it's been become into a spiritual and a cultural that is not related to the concrete space or land. That was made Judaism what it is. It's not the temple. And and peace is part of the Judaism culture. And there are about 400 orders that we need to do in Judaism. I'm not a Orthodox Jew. Okay, I'm not. But I'm very spiritual Jew. There are only two from those 400 orders, only two gods tell us that we must pursue. It's not land, it's not power, it's not revenge, it's definitely not war. It's peace and justice. So, Judaism, you ask me what's the core of Judaism? I would tell peace and justice. Also, peace, shalom, salam,
Mm,
is the name of God
mm,
in Arabic and in Hebrew.
mm,
That's the name of God.
mm.
So if a Jewish people would come and tell me, I believe in war, I don't believe in peace, I would reckon he's not a Jew.
It's interesting, where you go there, because, just to go back into some of where we were earlier in the conversation, and the rise of secular concepts of worship like nationalism and the state, that's also when Zionism kind of emerges, right? And actually, a lot of the Zionist leadership was secular and in opposition to a lot of the Jewish and faith tradition. When you go back to the concept of Israel, and actually, it's not a secular physical, all of these type of things, but yet Zionism did win, and then eventually won uh, within you could argue that it was a minority of Jewish people
Exactly.
around the world supported, and then it became like this de facto. Well, now that it's here, it's a dominant thing. You can't it's you can't escape from it as a Jewish priest. It's not a question that you can have. It's so integrated. But then, is there a sustainable proposition then between Zionism and Judaism, and and how does that go moving forward? How does that come into what you're kind of saying?
Okay. So my grandparents
Mm,
were Zionist pioneers.
mm,
They were feeling the earth start shaking in Eastern Europe at the late 1930s,
mm-hmm,
and they came to Palestine under the British mandate
mm,
to fulfill the dream of the
mm,
Jewish people, the
mm,
dream that lasts about 2,000 years, to establish a secure and safe homeland to the Jewish people in our promised land. So my grandparents weren't, I'm saying they weren't in the Zionist movement, they were the Zionist movement. My grandparents were the Zionist movement. And they fulfilled their dream and established the state of Israel. And they made one big mistake. Okay, if we're talking about Israel Palestine, they never reconciled with the Palestinian. They never reconciled. They were just preparing themselves to the next war and not preventing the next war. And now it's our turn to fix it and to reconcile. And the biggest compromise both people will need to do is very simple. It's in our mind. It's not only something physical. We both need to acknowledge that the other people is also a native people with connection, spiritual, religious, cultural connection and attachment to the land. This is the biggest compromise. After both Israelis and Palestinians will be able to compromise on that, the path to peace is open. And I want now, so I'm so, it's so, it's not just so pleasant, also inspiring to speak to you, Taufik. We need to do it more, even
yeah,
if
we
not
did.
for the record, just
Yeah,
to,
just to have a coffee and
yes. So as a business entrepreneur, and I initiate more than 20 initiatives. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, before doing a public speaking, I wanted like to see if I can find a pattern within all those initiatives, and I found that there are 5 steps that I can find in all those initiatives. Step number one is to dream.
mm,
Then we must agree on our shared values
mm,
that we'll base our dream upon. We need to find partners because no one can fulfill big dreams on his own.
mm,
We need to have a roadmap to
mm,
know how to get to where we've seen in the dream, and we need to execute and implement the roadmap.
mm,
So this is exactly what Aziz and I with Interact are bringing to nowadays. We have a dream of peace.
mm,
We are sharing values of equality
mm,
and dignity,
mm,
sharing acknowledgement and recognition,
mm,
reconciliation and healing, security and safety. We
mm,
are building a coalition, a very powerful coalition partnership. And I know you are my partner already, but I
mm,
also want your listeners and audience. We need
mm,
to create a global partnership for peace and reconciliation
mm,
on the ground, Palestinian, Israelis, and international.
mm.
So, this is why it's so important to me to speak to you.
Mm.
Join us. We must work together.
So
And and we have a roadmap
yeah,
that I can also share, and we already executing the roadmap.
so it's interesting. And where's the roadmap, by the way? Where can people find the roadmap?
It's
Just
so simple. I will share it with you in 1 minute. Okay, it will take us only a minute. First, only 5 chapters. Chapter one is again that we must dream. Dream is the field where you can change humanity, and the only way to change reality is in the field of dream. So we must dream together. We must amplify the dream. every platform, every stage. If it's in a coffee meeting, in public transportation, in wedding, I speak with everyone and I tell them there's going to be peace by 2030.
mm,
So we amplify the dream. We need to legitimize it.
mm.
We need to legitimize reconciliation, negotiation, diplomacy, because what now those in power are warmongers.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
they thrive over our life. They thrive over division and polarization. But technology
Mm,
is connecting us all, so
mm,
we can use it and we can create an alternative, a global alternative to the warmongers, but we need to legitimize pieces. And us, Taufik, when I'm saying us, it's you, me, and our friends to legitimize as the leaders of the future. Then we need to create a policy change to start investing in tools of construction and not all tools of war. And I'm not saying we don't need an army, okay, or weapons, but I'm saying that if we diverse only 10% of the global security and defense budget into diplomacy, into negotiation, into dialogue and reconciliation, we're gonna have a global peace. Only
mm,
10%. It's not
mm,
gonna. We don't need more. And
mm,
then we need to create. This is the fifth chapter, the political will.
mm,
And many times those who signed the peace treaties are those who moment before, maybe a minute or a second before, was still killing innocent people and have blood on their hand. This is history. So,
mm,
but we need to raise the potential within them,
mm,
like we have within each one of us. Each
mm,
one of us can be a monster and can be human, can
mm,
be a war criminal or an angel. Each
mm,
one of us. So we
mm,
need to raise this potential in each one of us. If it's someone here like us, a common people, or it's those who are policymakers nowadays, they
mm,
have the possibility and the potential to be transformed.
mm. So let me ask you, because the roadmap, you know, like you mentioned, requires this adoption and kind of promulgation with these three different constituencies: Palestinians, Israelis, or people in Israel, people in Palestine, and then globally. And if I just very quickly take each one of those, let's just kind of consider them in Israel. So, even when, me and you have gone to know each other these last couple of years, sometimes, I meet different Israelis who are actually sympathetic, to what you're saying, but they go, that message doesn't really resonate right now in Israel, and it's a very small sliver. Is that true? Obviously, I know you believe that things can change in terms of sentiment, but it does seem very dominant in Israel that people don't want to hear this type of language about reconciliation, right?
So just yesterday, there was every Saturday there's a protest in Tel Aviv,
Yeah.
and one of the speakers who is a TV creator and screenwriter, and he said on the stage in front of there are thousands of people that now it's time for peace.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not just become a demonstration against the government; it's
Hmm.
become a demonstration pro peace,
Hmm.
and more and more. And again, I'm being approached by so many. My schedule is packed. Okay, I speak with in schools, gap year programs, universities, conferences.
Hmm.
The demand for ending the war is rising,
So
and
it's
we
not
need.
just like left wing hippie, the old kibbutzim. There are.
Peace is not about right and left.
Hmm.
Peace is not about right. Those who've
Hmm.
done made peace in the past were from the right.
Hmm.
Menachem Begin,
Hmm.
who made peace with Israel's greatest enemy, and in 1977 with
Hmm.
Egypt. But
Hmm.
Menachem Begin was a wanted terrorist by the
Right.
British mandate. He
Yeah.
was the head of the
Irgun.
Irgun. It
Yeah.
was a resistance, violence resistance movement,
Yeah.
and he commanded about 300 attacks
Yeah.
against the Brits and against Arabs. Many
Mm,
civilians died. Many civilians. I don't know the numbers. And he was also against the diplomatic relationship between Germany and Israel. And then he became a prime minister, and then he said, Menachem Begin said in his historical speech when Anwar Sadat visited Jerusalem, that we can prevent the war. We can prevent the war, but we cannot prevent peace. Peace will definitely happen. So I'm following his footsteps. It's not about right and left. It's about political imagination. It's about going back to who we are and how can we achieve security and safety. And again, all you the Israelis you're talking to care only about two things: security and safety. They don't care about anything, not about human rights, not about land, not about whatever, only security and safety.
Mm,
And we are false thinking that we can achieve security by bombs, walls, and war. But it never
mm,
worked anywhere in the world,
mm.
anywhere throughout human history. The only way to achieve security is diplomacy,
So
negotiation.
if you go to the other side, on the Palestinian side, there's the people and then there's the people in power, right? And there's two groups in power right now, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Even in Gaza, Hamas is still somehow, in power, which is its own, probably we could talk over coffee for a couple of hours about the failures of policy there over years. So the challenge in Palestine is what people are feeling, but then the envelopes, the instruments in which they can actually mobilize are also flawed, right? It's almost in Israel you also have a challenge, but you have a state of Israel that you could, then take in Palestine, and maybe that's the work that the Netanyahu has done over the years. But there's not the envelope of the state or the power or the structure, so you have this kind of dual challenge. So do you think, and in your conversations and also with Aziz and his conversations, Aziz Abu Sara, your partner, uh, are are you seeing that there's also resonance for this message? Is it even capable of taking root given the just challenge over there in the Palestinian areas?
So, because I'm not a political analyst and I'm not a scholar for conflicts or conflict resolution or for the Middle East, I feel a bit shy to even speak about it. I'm
Mm,
very honest with you.
mm,
And I think it's better to hear it from Palestinians.
mm,
But what I can say that there is a Palestinian peace movement,
mm,
and I can name few names, okay? All the organization within AllMap, Parents Family Forum, is Combated for Peace, is Women of the Sun, Human for Doctors for Human Rights, and others, and including Abu Mazen, who is the
mm,
president of the PA, who sent us a 5 minute video clip to the People Peace Summit we held in Jerusalem in just last May.
mm,
It was a 5 minute of peace and reconciliation.
mm.
So, and also, we definitely must recognize and acknowledge that there is no symmetry in the conflict. The
Yeah.
power is within Israel.
Yes.
So, as Israeli, I feel it's my um, it's my role, okay, and my commitment to do everything I can to promote and act for equality, for dignity, for
Mm,
shared acknowledgement and recognition, and speaking out loud that there will be no security to the people of
mm,
Israel if there will be no security and safety to the people of Palestine, and vice versa. This
mm.
is my mission.
It's like a very interesting challenge, and I agree with you on the power dynamic and the challenges that create. But one of the things that I've seen over 20 years is that all of the forums for negotiation, the organizations, they start to be supported from outside in Palestine and with these Palestinian groups because they need the funding, they need the organization. And slowly over a decade or a decade and a half, what happens is these organizations become more driven by donor and funding networks. Their leadership also start to take opportunities outside of Palestine because that's where they are. They start to be based outside of there. And it becomes a very big challenge to create a real grassroots embedded organization that has all the robustness, and then they become very difficult to stand against two forces, one being the entrenched, let's say, sclerotic power structure, which is now the PA and how it is, and the other is a, let's say, more rooted organization, which is Hamas. And so this third force very quickly, because it gets co-opted globally and part of the NGO network and the global civil society and the donors and the pictures with the donors and etc. I don't know how we solve that or tackle that, but that is a challenge, and maybe I need to have a couple of conversations with some of our Palestinian, let's say, counterparts about that. I did want to ask you, a final question about these constituencies related to the global community and in the US, because you mentioned Mamdani, and I don't want to go too much into him specifically because who knows what happens politically. But a lot of people in those movements, in the left wing movements, even Jewish, groups, they say, you know what, we're anti Zionist. The entire project of Israel, it is invalid, and Israelis don't have a right to exist in this indigenous land, and the existence of Israel itself, even those kibbutz next to Gaza, is a form of violence, and there can be no peace with violence until those people leave, until those people give back the land. And that is a very now robust ideology. What do you think of that? Where do you think that fits? How do you see it?
Well, we get it from both sides. Like also the Israelis say there is no Palestinian people. Some
Mm,
Zionists will say there is not such a thing, Palestinian people. And it's an invented nationality. So let's focus on the future. I'm not
mm,
start. Let's focus on the future.
mm.
Now, between the river to the sea, there are 7 million Palestinians, 7 million Israelis. No one is gonna go anywhere.
Mm,
And those who come, and again, this is one way to tackle it. Now let's see if we can agree on shared common ground and shared values to build the future based upon, and we are able to do it. Okay, quite easily. I would even reckon quite easily we can find a shared common ground and a shared future. um, and by what I would say that by choosing a side, doesn't matter which side. By choosing a side, you are ensuring the conflict and the bloodshed will continue.
mm,
It's as simple as that. And if you care about us, I'm saying, yes, both Israeli Palestinian, we are all human. We all deserve normal, equal, to live in freedom, in equality, in dignity. If you want to save life, support the peacemakers,
mm,
support peace, support reconcile. And I'm not going to argue about the facts, about history, about who started it and when and who's to blame, because there is no point. We can win. Some of us, I would win some arguments and the other will win some arguments, but we are winning the arguments and people are dying on the land. So let's stop the bloodshed and let's start building and envision a better future, not just for Israelis and Palestinians, but for humanity. This is the Holy Land. This is the Holy Land. When we achieve peace here, after a century of bloodshed, all human beings who live now on planet Earth were born after the conflict started.
mm,
The impact of securing peace in the Holy Land going to create a ripple effect that will go at such a positive wave of energy, of love, of compassion, of empathy that can spread all over. It can gap division and polarization in the US, in Europe, in Africa, and other places. So let's invest now in solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict here in the Holy Land, and then we're going to start a new phase. I believe we can start a new phase for humanity.
mm.
And
So
it's,
let
and
me
it's not
ask.
the first time we are starting a new phase here in
Yeah.
the Holy Land, but I think we are ready now for another one.
Well, let me ask you a question that I often close with, which is, where do you see things in this aspirational, let's say, vision in the year 2040? So if you fast forward yourself, where are we in the Holy Land 15 years from now?
No, I will go to 2030.
Well, you
Okay.
have to do 2040 because we're in the
Oh,
2040, so I'm going to push you a little bit.
okay, 2030. There are no checkpoints, no checkpoints between the river to the sea and also neighboring countries. No checkpoints. Maybe one currency. There's going to be some federal institutions. They're going to be municipality and national institution. Uh, there will be no refugee camp. No, everyone would live within dignity, within prosperity. People would come from all over the world to explore and to learn how we were able to achieve reconciliation and peace after a century of bloodshed. Like now, many activists are going to North Ireland or going to the Peace and Reconciliation Museum in Hiroshima, Japan. And I think, yeah, this is what I say.
Well, it's a good vision, and I think, like you said, everything takes action. We have to all work towards the outcomes we want to see. Maoz, this has been really fantastic. I mean, completely not enough time, obviously, but I
Thanks.
think we got a little bit deep. Hopefully, it was interesting for you as well.
Very interesting, very much, very much. I would love to do it again, even just the two of us with no recording. Uh, yes,
Ec-
amazing.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Maoz, and we'll hopefully speak soon.
Inshallah.
And it's an important subject.
Thank you.